There are four main rivers that run through Europe. There's the Rhine, which runs through Germany and goes into the Atlantic. There's the Rhone that goes through France into the Mediterranean. There's the Po, which runs through Italy into the Adriatic Sea. And there is the Danube that runs through Austria and Hungary into the Black Sea. And these four rivers that run through four different parts of the European continent are incredibly diverse. You know, downstream of these rivers, there's lots of different cultures, lots of different people, lots of different flora and fauna, lots of different geography, lots of different beliefs and worldviews, and there's a multitude of differences according to which river and how far downstream that river you are. However, each and every one of those rivers, if you follow them upstream, they all have one source. These are the four main rivers in Europe. Come back to one source, which is up in the Swiss Alps. There's a place that you can actually go to where the snow melts and the glacier ice melts, and it starts to kind of go in a diversity of four different directions. And downstream, those rivers that had one source become incredibly diverse. But they all have the same source. So too with you and me and everybody else in the world. There are a multitude of perspectives that we all can take. There's a multitude of beliefs, a multitude of experiences, a multitude of cultures and languages and worldviews. And it creates a beautiful diversity, but it also creates a lot of conflict, a lot of confusion, a lot of misunderstanding. And, what's a poor person to do? Oh my God, which perspective do I choose? Which one's right? And, all kinds of conflicts and even holy wars that have been created based on that diversity or differences of perspectives. But just like all those rivers in Europe, if you trace them back upstream, they come from one source. So too does all of the diversity of perspectives in the world come back to one source at the genesis of consciousness, at the essence of consciousness. In the essence, we are all one. The diversity of views, the diversity of opinions, the differences, the political views, the worldviews, the parts where we agree or disagree, all of those, if we try to work those things out, they tend to be zero sum. But if we go to the source, if we can come to the source of our very own consciousness, we'll understand that where you and I are different, your beliefs and my beliefs are different, your views and my views are different, your likes, dislikes, fears, and desires, and my likes, dislikes, fears, and desires are not the same. They are all relative. But if we can go upstream, back to the source, back to the essence of our consciousness, we're the same. It is the same source. That is where you and I are actually one. However, all of these downstream differences, all of these downstream concerns, all of these downstream conflicts even, create a dialectic that actually, if it's held in the right way, can create a developmental and evolutionary tension where the conflict of differences can, under the right conditions, can evolve and emerge into a new whole. They can move into a perspective that is inclusive of all. We need the differences. We need the diversity, and in one sense, in a very real sense, we need the conflict. But we need the conflict in the right way, and when it's in the right way, we will grow. And one ingredient of that perspective, when we're dealing with all the differences of the world, is the perspective that we all come from the same source. Not as an idea, but as an actual perspective that has been tasted. So we need practices that will help us move upstream. We need practices that will lead us back to the source. We need practices that actually define and clearly state that we are all one. We come from one source. And that's how we learn how to work through and deal with and negotiate all the differences. Mindfulness, it's probably not the only one that leads to the source, but mindfulness is probably, I would say it's the best, but let's say it's one of the best practices that actually lead you upstream, that actually religio, like religion, the root term of religion is religio, which means to link back. It helps us link back to the original source. It moves us upstream. Every moment Every time you stop and become mindful or aware or presence, what happens is your knowing, your awareness in that moment of whatever the experience is begins to deepen a little bit. And at that depth, you've got a little bit more space. And if you can stay mindful without contracting into differences and, fight, flight, freeze and all that stuff, if you can stay open and allow yourself to be with the experience, it'll deepen more and you'll have a little bit more space. It'll deepen more and it'll have a little bit more space. Mindfulness has the basic quality of deepening. And every time we deepen, we move a little bit back upstream towards the source. We deepen more, we move a little bit back upstream towards the source. We deepen more, we move a little bit more back upstream towards the source. And in this sense, mindfulness is your number one resource for connecting with your source. And the source, this kind of deepest part of consciousness, the source of awareness, the source of all of the diversity, the 10 million thousand diverse perspectives that can be taken in the universe, plus more, all of those come back to one, all of those have one original source. And this kind of depth of consciousness, this depth of awareness, where even the sense of self is relaxed and dissolved away, and it's pure knowing, this depth of awareness is infinitely resourceable. And in this sense, mindfulness, the practice of mindfulness, just stop being with the moment without acting or thinking. Well, thoughts are going to happen, so you can't stop thoughts, but without being identified with the thoughts and without acting and speaking and kind of going into stuff. Mindfulness, this practice of mindfulness, is your number one resource for dealing with the diversity of views. Without mindfulness, when we move into this diversity of views, we're probably going to run into friction and conflict and maybe some anxiety and stress. Normal. That's normal in life. Stopping, moving into the body, connecting, taking a perspective on the experience, having a perspective on the experience, being mindful of the experience, is the number one resource which helps us move back upstream. And with that, I want to wish you a great week of practice, and may your practice lead you forward, back upstream, to the source of consciousness. And may mindfulness be your number one resource in your life.